Gray Zone Warfare is one of those games where the more you hear about it, the more you like it. But of everything we're getting, I'm noticing a distinct lack of PvP oriented info, so let's talk about it. Madfinger Games is developing Gray Zone Warfare and is one of the few development studios that I am following that is consistently putting out new information about their game. But I've noticed a trend. The information is almost exclusively about how realistic it is or PvE related features. Now, don't get me wrong, while all of this seems really cool, it's left me with this nagging feeling wondering where the PvP oriented content is going to be. Based on the information we have, I have my suspicions on the setup. I've discussed much of the info I'll be referencing in my previous videos, linked above and down in the description. The default setup has 3 PMC factions on the outskirts of the map with missions that over time have you venture into the center of the map. To me, this sounds like the endgame is set up to be oriented around the center of the map where a mysterious event happened. So this presumes that the players that have worked their way to this point are more likely to run across each other. Given how big the map is projected to be, with it being able to fit 1000 AI and 9 separate player squads, 1 that you're in and 2 that belong to your own PMC, PvP seems like a pretty small possibility. Frankly, you're more likely to run into your own PMC members whose potential interactions are likely to end in punishment rather than reward. So the server that you're currently on would require multiple squads who are advanced enough to be progressing into the center zone and be part of rival PMCs for you to have a reasonable shot at engaging in PvP. Now don't get me wrong, I am not opposed to PvE. I fully understand many will want to explore this game themselves and with friends without the challenge of running into another player. But according to recent updates, there will be whole servers dedicated to just that. My concerns are with the default setup still not having enough PvP to hold people's interests. Given that the portion of the player base that wants nothing to do with PvP will have their own servers, it stands to reason that the remainder won't be satisfied with an insignificant amount of it. And I understand that Gray Zone Warfare is being built to create an authentic PMC experience, so there are limits on what can be done in order to incentivize more, for lack of a better word, gamified behavior. So here are 2 ideas I've come up with to introduce to Gray Zone Warfare to incentivize PvP in ways that fit its setup. To be clear, I'm just spitballing. I in no way have any info to suggest these ideas could or would be implemented. But Madfinger Games have shown themselves to be open to feedback and suggestions, and well, I decided to put a video together. I'll also be putting these suggestions into the Gray Zone Warfare's Discord, suggestions under Gecko's PvP wishlist. So if you want to add to it, I'll see you there. I also want to point out that I don't necessarily think these ideas need to be on default server settings. But since there is a PvE only mode, at some point Gray Zone Warfare could introduce a more PvP centric mode as an option, if only to gauge the interest of its player base. These ideas could also be possible settings for custom servers, allowing for communities to set up the way they want. Alright, on with the ideas. The first one is the creation of a bandit/local merc group playable by players much like a PMC. It's based out of a location on the map. Their main function would be a QRF force to PMCs attacking locations on the map. They would get an alert, load up, and they'd be transported to an LZ to then investigate the local area to hunt down the PMCs in that area or secure the site that was under attack. Knowing that there is a QRF of opposing players would heavily incentivize PMCs to act with discretion and exfil from the AO as quickly as they can manage. The bandit players would effectively have a handful of mission types centered around the actions of the server's PMCs, what missions they are performing, and how they are going about it. They would be given less than complete intel as the faction is built for players whose sole function is to hunt down other players. These players could still be PMCs, but ones that have gone rogue as stated in previous updates. A couple of things to consider, depending on how you set it up, you would be modeling a new helicopter, or a little bird could be just fine, or you could be modeling ground vehicles that would transport rogue players. You could have this group be 1 squad or a couple of pairs of players or whatever. It would never be enough to counter all of the PMCs on the map, so while the threat remains, there is not a guaranteed engagement every single time PMC group triggers a possible alert. The second idea is more direct. Previous information we've received indicates that there will be PvE strongholds that you can capture and unlock traders in the field. These strongholds could be equipped with a radio that calls out to the owning PMC members, indicating it is under attack. With enough of these on the map, you could reasonably create the possibility that taking and changing PMC ownership of these strongholds would be a PvP risking endeavor. You could limit this to certain strongholds or all of them depending on the setup. You could combine these two ideas as well, making the bandit/merc faction based out of one of these strongholds, and one of their mission sets could be to acquire all of the strongholds. These strongholds, or some at least, could serve as their fobs where they will be getting resupplied. Both of these ideas will introduce a large amount of variability to the map, increase the tension when engaging in missions, give players that are likely done with the campaign an outlet to continue playing, while also attracting a wider audience that are more interested in PvP. In the end, I know many will simply be uninterested in PvP content, but on the flip side, there are plenty of players that won't be interested in a game that offers very little of it either. If Grayzone Warfare can create a game that can appeal to both crowds, that would be quite an accomplishment that would be a recipe for success. If you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend subscribing and hitting that like button. Thank you for watching, and good hunting.